exciting working with Tara. Tara curated the exhibition, and as many things we do at the school, we just have an idea, and then it happens. And it just keeps going on like that over and over. The gallery's been going on since 2006, and it was just an idea. Someone said, well, let's have a gallery, and so we figured out how to get a nonprofit status and get a board together, and then figure out how to organize shows. I mean, it's a lot of work, but it's really exciting to have this kind of another way to bring people in the community to look at contemporary art. So I'd like to introduce Tara Nicholson, who curated the show, and she's also an instructor here at Vancouver Island School of Art. She teaches photography.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. I think it's the coldest night we've had so far, so thank you. I'm just going to say a little bit, like Wendy was saying, how we've done this, and I'm an artist too. As Wendy was saying, I teach here at Visa as well at ExhibitVic, and I know sometimes people that are artists, or if you haven't curated before, it's a little bit of a mystery, so I want to talk a little bit about that process as well, and equally just introduce the artist. We have most of them here, almost half of them here, so I'll do that as well. So as Wendy was saying, we just sort of came up with the idea of doing something really just around photography in the gallery space. And myself, most of my work is photography, so I really wanted to do that and have a really strong showcase of contemporary photography in Victoria. So we were trying to really come up with a thematic idea and a different way of thinking about photography within the space. And then also tied to that, somehow we came up with this idea of having more established artists or more well-known artists with perhaps an open call or a public call to work around a theme. And in that way really sort of pairing work with artists that perhaps have never even exhibited their work before with artists that have a much longer exhibition record. So that was sort of how it came out of the idea for the show. And then this idea of backspaces, we were just sort of tossing around this notion of how we could make it a thematic show but not really have it be about a place, or not have it be about landscape in terms of this idea of landscape, or even this notion of what landscape is actually about. So we just came up with this word backspace. I'm not sure how we did it, but also
the
almost
usual brainstorming.
Yes, the brainstorming. And we thought about this as almost like a bit of a disconnect, or the digital processes and how we're just really inundated with so many images on a daily basis, and we really wanted to show that as a way of not only the subject, which is a lot of this work that you'll see of that disconnect and what the subject of photography is for a lot of photographers, finding that back alley or something that's very overlooked or that forgotten space, but also the act of being a photographer, the artist, and going out to these spaces. In a lot of ways it's really connected to my own work as well, and that idea of getting in your automobile or just like walking around the neighborhood and actually finding the subject that you're actually going to photograph. And I think that's a big part of this work. So that's sort of where the idea for the show came together. And then Wendy really just approached myself and asked if I'd like to curate it. And then it just really sort of went on from there. We were able to get a CDR grant to publish the catalog that we have here tonight, which is really great, because especially as a young artist, it's really difficult to have catalogs of your work produced, and this is really a valuable thing. So that's sort of where that went, and we're going to be selling these tonight for $5. So if you can, and all the proceeds going to the school, a little plug.
To pay for the catalog.
Because printing is expensive. But the idea of the catalog was to basically link the work thematically with an essay, curatorial essay together, and then to have at least one image of all the artists together in the catalog. So I think what I'll do is just go around the room in the order that the show is hung. I think that makes most sense, and just introduce the artists, their work, and sort of how it came together. And I'll start over here in this corner with the black and white prints that you'll see here. And these are Vicki Alexander's work, and as some of you might know, she teaches at UVic. She's taught there since 1992, and she's unfortunately in Montreal this week. Well, fortunately for her, but unfortunately for us. And so she's given us these 3 prints to be part of the show, and I really honestly approached her for very, very selfish reasons. I've never actually seen her work exhibited in the flesh. I've known about her practice for a very long time, and she originally, this series Island, which is shot in this very ornate old wrought iron sort of garden in London were shown as huge black and white prints, sort of 60 by 40 prints. So these are smaller images of that work, but I think that really, really tied in to the idea. And when I pitched her this idea, and if any of you have met Vicki, she has a really strong personality, she's really passionate, and she really didn't think that her work related at all to the theme that I was approaching, but I really kept talking to her about it and kept persuading her, and it's very different, right? Because a lot of Vicki's work, if you have a chance to look at it, it's really connected to a sense of utopia and a sense of escape. And so it was a whole other idea of thinking of this sort of overlooked way and how we think of these spaces that are very hidden. So that's a little bit about Vicki's work there, and she has a great website, and she does sculpture and stuff if you're wanting to see some more of her work. So we had Vicki, who's obviously exhibited a lot, and then if you just turn here sort of directly behind, there's two prints just right here by Joanne Hemmon, who's here tonight, who, maybe you could just point yourself out, she's right here, which is wonderful. And Joanne, I recently just met her, and she was in a smaller show that I did this summer, which was these projections on the wall. And Joanne is one of the artists from the open call. And I could speak just a little bit about that, but she submitted her work, and I was just really drawn to these two images that are both taken sort of in that Jordan River, China Beach area. And you can see how West Coast they are, and how I think representative of this area they are. But equally, they're very different. Like, they're not this sort of typical West Coast beautiful forest images. And I thought they were just really unique and had this sense of escapism in them. And Joanne, you've been living here for, you said 11 years, and you're from Montreal as well. So it's really nice to have her as part of the show. So Joanne's here if you'd like to speak to her more about her work. And then these three, mostly larger prints here are Stephen Waddell's prints, and he unfortunately is in Berlin right now. We're going to have him come over, I think, later in the school year, probably next semester, and have him do a talk, so I think that'll be really great. And I didn't know Stephen personally, and I really just approached him like sort of this pitch, and I really honestly didn't think he would accept the pitch to be part of the show. And with the funding, we were able to offer artists a small honorarium, but he, similar to Vicki, he really exhibits on a very international scale, and he was more than welcome to be part of the show. He was really excited about the idea. He prints all his own work himself in his studio, and he printed these for the exhibition. All of his work spans years, and it's shot all over the world. He shoots it in Berlin, in Vancouver. So this whole idea, and I mentioned this in the catalog, of how he sort of hunts down his subjects and stuff is really what his work is about. And it's for me, as a photographer myself, it's very photographic in the sense of how he goes about making you think about photography and how we actually photograph objects. So I was really happy to have him select these three photographs himself and to have them part of the show. So that's just a little bit about Stephen. And then here on the other side here, these quite beautiful, these three sea prints here. I'll just move up here. Are Sarah Fuller's work, and she's unfortunately in Banff and couldn't come down to the opening, but similarly we'd like to have her come and do a talk here at Visa. And these are actually the only sea prints in the show, and the difference is being an inkjet print going through like an Epson and the ink on the top versus a sea print is actually run through a photographic machine and printed with the enlarger. So I don't know if you can tell the difference or if that's important, but these are three prints that she's printed herself in the color darkroom. And this is a brand new body of work. I speak about it a little bit more in the catalog, that she's doing it in Bear Creek, which is this place in the Yukon which is completely sort of disappeared, and she's going back and sort of photographing the remnants of it. And she's doing a larger project there in the Yukon where she's photographing these houses that have been relocated and then hanging them in the trees and lighting them. And Sarah does amazing work. She has a great website as well, and she's done stuff with dream cycles and sleeping. And so I was just really happy that she was part of the show. And she's also the photo facilitator at the Banff Center. So if any of you are interested in doing a residency there, she's a really great resource. So that's Sarah there. And then these three images here, which if you haven't had a chance to look at them up close, have some beautiful details. And these three are Francis Sullivan, who's here tonight here. So please speak to him. Francis, I recently just met as well, and he actually, make sure I have this right, works as a professional printer, a fine art printer in the Rock Bay area, right? And Francis was part of the open call as well, and he exhibited some of these images with the show that I did in the summer, and I was really taken by them, and even asked him if he would submit again for this show. And he submitted some that I hadn't seen before, and he's been doing this body of work in Rock Bay for about 2 years, and literally just going out on his lunch breaks and taking photographs of this sort of, I think, really hidden area in Victoria, right? It's very transitory and all these little things. I mean, this building is already gone, right? So it's very instant how it's changing. And you printed these yourself as well, so really beautiful images. Okay, so those are Francis there. And then these two here are Elspeth, who is Elspeth, sorry, right here, Finlay, and you guys are for the open call as well. And just coincidentally, I had just met you because you're in my photography class here at Viva. Not that I favor them, but I was really, really drawn to them and showed them to a lot of people when we were during the work, and everyone was really taken by them. And Elspeth, you were even writing it in the catalog that they're some of the first photographs you've ever really taken, right? Which is so amazing to think about that, because most of us take so many pictures. But just that idea, I was really taken by that. But also just how formal they are in a way, and how it gives us access to the space that we're really don't usually have access to. And in a lot of ways it really challenged this notion of backspace and retreat, because it's such a barren space and an industrial space, but I think we can really seek solace in these spaces as well, just by photographing them and looking at them. And yeah, so I was really taken by these images, and we're hoping you're going to do more photography. Okay, and then these ones just over here are Selena's, Roberts, who's right here. And I know Selena a little bit from the past. We've taken some photography here as well. So I was really glad that she submitted this work for this show. And if I kind of talk a little bit about Selena, because I do know her a little bit, she's done a whole body of very beautiful work looking at more at neighborhoods in Victoria and how they're separated by things. And so then when she submitted this work, which is much more architectural, I was really, really drawn to it, and how this sort of architecture really delineates the space and marks it, and I think just how peaceful and quiet they are. So I found them just really beautiful. And coincidentally, these two prints, she's worked with with Quinton, who's going to be doing a talk here, and he's a wonderful printer. If any of you are wanting to have your work printed locally, he's quite wonderful. So that's all the work in the show, and I just wanted to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I don't know if folks have questions for Wendy or myself.
Well, thanks, Tara.
Yeah. Okay.